are two of the dietitians here at Working Against Gravity, and we're starting a new thing we're going to try with everybody called Lunch and Learn. So we have our lunches here with you guys. Trigger warning, if you're bothered by people eating and possibly talking with their mouth full, this might not be for you because we're going to be eating. We're sharing our lunches with you, and we're answering some of our clients' questions for you all today. These are some of our clients, some clients from other coaches, and hopefully we can give you all some answers and some things to move forward. So, Alex, what's for lunch?
What I got here, I got some grilled chicken breasts that we grilled a few days ago, and some carrots that I threw in the air fryer just now to get nice and crispy. And I have some sweet potatoes for dessert because
Perfect.
I'd like to end on a sweet note.
Nice.
What you got over there in that bowl?
So I have, as I spilled a raspberry.
All the raspberries?
Oh gosh, my cat's down here scratching away. I have oatmeal made with egg whites instead of water to boost up the protein. I have raspberries that I just spilled one out, and peanut butter for some healthy fats dumped on top, all mixed up together for a delicious lunch. Love it.
So a little PB&J action inside the oatmeal bowl.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Give it a try if you
So,
haven't.
okay, you just said egg whites in your oatmeal. I've got to ask, does that change the taste? Does it make it different? What do you like about it?
I love it. It is a hack of the century. Do it, everyone, if you haven't. It makes it fluffier and it's a little denser, I would say, but doesn't change the taste of it at all. And
Mm-hmm.
adds a ton of protein.
Perfect. So that's an easy way to knock out some of that protein
Yeah.
that you have for the day, and in an easy bowl. So it's just a convenient 1-2 thing.
Yep. Start off maybe half and half if you're scared, like, or kind of worried about it. But I do like
Mm-hmm.
a 1 for 1. Like if I'm normally putting like a cup of water, I'll do like a whole cup of egg whites. Tastes great. Zap it in the microwave if it's an instant oatmeal and that's how you normally make it. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So what if you eat it? What if you do it in the stove? Same process?
Same process.
I
Yep.
should say not in the stove, on the stove.
On the stove. In
On
the
the
stove.
stove, yes.
In the stove. Same process.
All,
Um, all
okay,
right.
so we're here to learn. So let's get to some questions.
All right. So one of the questions we had was, how much water should I be drinking every day?
Okay, that's a great question. And what I like to do, or how I like to answer this, is it's relative. It is all dependent on how your body size, your activity level, where you're living in the world, if it's a hot or a cold climate, and then also the time of the year. Some seasons need a little bit more, some seasons need a little bit less. So the best way to monitor that is to check your urine color. So as you're using the bathroom, look down into the toilet and see if, hey, my urine is really, really yellow, almost brown. I think that is a sign of you need a little bit more water. You need some more fluids. Now, if it's looking pale or a very faint yellow, then that means you're probably right spot on. You're hydrated. You're in a good place. So just keep on doing what you're doing. Now, if you actually need a number, if you're a number person and just want something to go off of, I usually suggest anywhere from 0.5 to 1 ounce of water per pound of body weight. So if you are a 140-pound person, that could be anywhere from 70 ounces to 140 ounces every single day. And you can kind of fall anywhere in that to be well hydrated.
Easy enough. So
Yeah.
do we count other things in that? What do you do for like coffee,
Ooh,
that sort of
yeah,
thing?
good question. So I usually count all fluids that aren't caffeinated. Um, I believe that the caffeine content can dehydrate you a little bit. So if we can count things like the water or the milk in your protein drink, or the milk that you're drinking. If you're just drinking milk, that is a fluid. So anything that is not caffeinated, I think you're good to count that as your fluids, as your water intake. What do you
Perfect.
think? Is that something that you agree on, or?
Yeah. Generally, like I will tell if people really want a number, I'll do the same thing as you. But yeah, looking at your urine is a great guide. And I think a lot of times we get caught up on that number of like we need X amount of ounces or liters a day. And your body's going to tell you. Yeah. And
Yeah,
your urine doesn't need to be completely clear. As long as it's that pale yellow or a really light yellow, you're good to go.
perfect. All
Hmm.
right. So let me throw it back at you. So here's a good question. Does it matter when I eat my meals? And then so I have a two for one. And then how many meals should I be eating?
Okay. Like most things with nutrition, it depends. But um, does it matter when I eat my meals? Okay, so for the vast majority of us, no, it doesn't matter when you eat your meals. Now, asterisk, if you are a high level athlete and you are preparing for an event and you are really trying to hone in your athletic performance, then yes, it matters when you eat your meals. We need to really work on nutrient timing and making sure that your carbohydrates are around your training time and really optimizing carbs. That aside, for the rest of us average people, we really want to make sure that nutrition works for you. That's the takeaway. You need to make sure that whatever you do with your nutrition, it flows for your life. So we want to make sure that you're eating when you're hungry and that it works for you. If dinner at 5 o'clock works for you, eat dinner at 5 o'clock. If you're not hungry at 5 o'clock and your family eats dinner at 7 o'clock, eat dinner at 7 o'clock. I think a lot of times we try to force ourselves into this mold and we don't need to. We need to find what works for us. Um, this mold of like we need to have 3 meals a day, I think that is just sort of that's a societal mold and we don't have to fit into that. If that's what works for you and your body, great. That's a lot of what we talk about with one-on-one coaching is like, hey, what's going to work for you? Is do you respond better from sort of 5 or 6 smaller meals through the day? Or do you like maybe having 2 bigger meals? Do you like sort of maybe a mode of, you know, delaying that first meal a little bit and doing 2 larger meals? What feels best to you? Um, there isn't a right or wrong answer to this. And I know for me, like I sort of like pushing back breakfast just a tiny bit. Not super late, but I like pushing breakfast back a little bit. And then that frees me up to have a kind of a larger breakfast and then have lunch a little later. And then I have dinner. And then that's my day. So it isn't exactly like a true breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Um, what about you?
That's a good question. And about what I do, see, I'm a little bit opposite than you. When I first wake up, I want breakfast right away. I am immediately coming out of the bedroom right into the kitchen and fixing breakfast. And then even though that makes me have to think about my day a little bit differently and spread out my needs, maybe a little bit more strategic, it feels right for my body in terms of that's when I'm hungry. And I know if I don't start a meal right away, I start to get a little hangry and I can't focus and things like that. It's always the worst. Like if I've ever had to give blood or do any kind of fasting, I'm just the worst person to be around. So I know I have to eat. But then in terms of the rest of the day, I just try to eat um, every so often. Once I start to get hungry, I know my patterns. I usually get hungry about every 3 to 4 hours, and whether that is a meal or a snack, I just kind of go off of that pattern, and it seems to work for me. So yeah, I completely agree. It all depends on who you are, and to just make it work for your lifestyle. And your schedule and working around that. And I think that is the golden way to eat for you.
Yeah, there you have it, everybody. 2 dietitians that have complete opposite approaches to their morning, and it works. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So a non-answer to your question, everyone. All right. Another question here. We have a few more minutes so we can answer here. All right, so here's our question. What if I can only hit one of my macros? Which one would we choose to have them hit?
Okay, good question. Okay. So what I would say is if I had to choose one, it would be protein. And the reason for that is I believe that protein is king. Um, it is actually the one macronutrient that our body cannot completely make. So we have to make sure that we're consuming it through our food or our liquids or just some kind of dietary intake every single day in order to get those essential nutrients that our body needs. And so I always think that protein, for that number one reason, is super important. Now, there's also so many other great reasons for why you should focus on protein and make sure that you hit that one at least daily. One, it's great for hunger management. So if you deal with odd cravings throughout the day or hunger, especially as the evening rolls around, eating protein throughout the day probably is going to solve that those challenges right there. Another reason is that protein has been proven to be so beneficial for weight management, whether that is for weight loss, for maintaining weight, just having a consistent amount of protein every single day is shown time and time again in research to be so beneficial for that weight component. And when we're eating enough, we actually spare our body from losing muscle mass. You know, when we're losing weight, we don't want to necessarily just lose muscle mass and tissue. We want to lose fat. At least I do. I want to keep my muscle that I've worked super hard for. So eating that protein is going to act as a insurance policy that I'm actually losing fat and not my muscle. What about you?
Absolutely. Like it's whenever someone is traveling or like right now during the holidays and it's, oh gosh, maybe we're not going to be able to log and track and be super accurate, which is life. That happens sometimes. Like, what is the one thing we can focus on? Protein, always. Like, that's what we go um, for all the reasons that you said. And then exactly, or also because it's the one thing that's challenging to come across too. Carbs and fats are everywhere. But if we can put our protein in there and make sure that we at least have that to carry us through, it's going to keep us full, keep us satisfied, and also just make sure that our diet's a little more balanced as well. So, protein. If you can do nothing else through your day, make sure you have protein in your diet. It's going to be huge for
Awesome.
sure.
It looks like we agree on that one. So,
Yeah,
guys, hit your protein, eat it.
for sure.
Okay, so I think we might have time for maybe one last question. So I'm going to
Yeah.
throw it back at you, Brittany. So when I'm going to log and track my foods, do I have to do it raw or cooked?
This we
Please help me out with this one.
we get this so often. And the answer really is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do it raw or cooked. Just make sure it's consistent. Um, so for example, let's use like chicken. I think chicken's like something that a lot of us are eating. Say you have raw chicken breast. Take it out of the package of raw chicken breast. If you maybe there's a barcode, maybe not, probably not on raw chicken breast, but if you just search MyFitnessPal or Macros First, whatever your tracker is for chicken breast, it's going to be raw. That's what you're going to see. If you do 100 grams of chicken breast, that is going to be for a raw entry of chicken. So if you're weighing and measuring it raw, great, easy peasy, those two things match. But what tends to happen for most of us is when we cook, we're cooking either for more than one person or we're cooking for more than one meal. So we end up putting 2 or 3 chicken breasts in the pan or in the oven and we bring it out and then we're weighing and measuring it cooked. And then we search our tracker for chicken breast. It brings up a raw entry and then we're weighing and measuring it cooked. So a little bit of a discrepancy there because we're losing water in the cooking process. So then we're seeing raw chicken breast, we're weighing and measuring it cooked. So what you need to do is just make sure you search chicken breast cooked, and then you're going to get a cooked entry, and that'll make sure everything matches up. The other place outside of meats that we see this pretty commonly is with pasta and grains. Rice makes a huge difference. If you just scan the bag of rice, that's going to be for uncooked rice, like a cup of uncooked rice or 100 grams of uncooked rice is very different than 100 grams of cooked rice. That can make a huge difference in your carbohydrates. Same thing with pasta. So just make sure whatever you're searching in your tracking app matches what's actually on your plate. So whenever in doubt, just add as many descriptive words as possible. Uncooked rice, cooked rice, prepared, not prepared. Be as descriptive as possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. It doesn't necessarily matter if you do it one way or the other. It just make sure that you do it consistently and you continue to do that, because then you're going to be able to monitor those changes over time. So even if person A is doing raw and person B is doing cooked entries, they're still doing the same, and they can then track any differences or changes within their body, keeping that, and then you can make changes that way. But yeah, that's the very good point of looking for the cooked. There are some discrepancies, so you just want to make sure that you're accurate as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is a lot of fun. I love this. Would you do it again sometime?
Absolutely. Maybe same time next week.
Yeah, I love it. If you guys have any questions that you'd like us to answer, you can leave them in the comments and we would love to answer them for you. So thank you guys so much for watching and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.